Hi, I'm Natalie Gawkner. This is Both Sides of the Aisle. I represent the political center and have on the political left Shireen Gorbani.
Hello, and listeners, thanks for tuning in.
And on the political right, John Dougal.
Hey, it's great to be back in the bunker with you.
Yeah, we're recording in studio and lots of news. Let's go international first, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's go to Argentina. I've never been to Argentina.
Talk bailouts, right?
Yeah. I have never been to Buenos Aires. I'm a big soccer fan. I know some of their soccer clubs and things. You two been there?
I have not been there.
Okay,
No,
John?
ma'am.
Okay, so we don't know the country, but we do know this, that our president has committed, $40 billion in bailout money.
To Argentina.
And doing it because it's his pal, because he wants him to win elections, saying it's in our nation's interest to have that party in power in Argentina.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a lot of election interference to me.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of a little bit sounds like nation building as well to me. This kind of money, just reminding everyone, we are still, as we are recording this, I'm guessing while you're listening, in a government shutdown. $40 billion, for example, could fund the cuts that have been made to healthcare in this country by the Republican Party. But
Bad timing on their part.
But instead, we are sending it to Argentina, specifically the ACA subsidies. Yeah. But this, to me, is so deeply anti the MAGA movement. I think it's also really questionable because this is a extreme right-wing government that is not doing a good job managing their finances, and that is why they need this money.
Yeah.
I love Shireen being the MAGA whisperer right there.
Yeah, and MAGA doesn't like this, though, do they, John?
Well, it's one of those things. Some in MAGA, it's whatever Trump does, they love. Other ones are a little more consistent, where it's like, wait a second, I thought we were not doing nation building. Now we're doing nation building. What's going on? And this is where we've seen over the last 9-10 months the president pulling back monies for foreign relations, and then all of a sudden this doesn't seem to jive with that kind of direction.
It troubles me that our Treasury Secretary, Bessent, has a lot of friends in firms that will benefit from this. This is BlackRock, Fidelity, PIMCO. They have money invested there that they can't have the nation go under, and they need it to be propped up. That part troubles me. Yeah,
but let's be honest. I mean, these companies, regardless of domestic or foreign, these companies are big enough, they'll be involved in whatever happens anywhere.
Yeah. Well, so this weekend, Saturday, we had nearly 7 million people nationwide protest in the No Kings.
I thought you were going to talk about the game.
Yeah, the big game.
Condolences, but
Yeah, we can talk more if you want. But 7 million people showed up for the No Kings protests across the country.
Yeah.
More than 100,000 people in New York, Shireen.
It sounded like it was peaceful.
Yeah,
I didn't hear any things of violence. It sounded like peaceful protests.
Yeah,
that was good.
It does interfere with traffic. My daughter lives on Capitol Hill, and so I always have to be mindful of what kind of protests are going on. But John, what's underlying all this? I mean, how would you summarize this to someone who just got here?
I would summarize this as some people who don't fully understand how the government works are very upset with Trump, but lack the consistency of, regardless of which administration is acting like a king or exceeding the bounds of statute or the Constitution, we're out protesting. So I wish we'd be more consistent about both parties and their overreach of government, rather than picking and choosing and not fully understanding the breadth of...
Yeah, and I get your point. It does sound a little bit like a pivot.
Doesn't it?
Explain what a pivot is, Shireen.
I think what is at the center of this issue...
I told folks I'm a no kings, no executive order kind of guy. So, I don't care which party.
And not to say it's not consistent for you, but I do think it draws a little bit of attention away from really the deep outrage that is building across this country when it comes to... folks are starting to get, for a person who absolutely is a dead horse when it comes to the issue of healthcare, people are starting to get their announcements from their premium increases. They are starting to see the impacts of the billionaire bailout, the big, beautiful bill that is honestly going to make life more expensive and difficult for a lot of people in this state.
That's not what Hakeem Jeffries calls it.
The billionaire bailout? He should consider taking the talking point.
One big ugly bill, something like that.
Well, when we are lining the pockets of billionaires to defund people's healthcare, to make life less affordable, to claw back food subsidies, that is what people are out protesting. And I think they're also, for me, I think when we look at the way that this president is joking about remaining in power, he does think he's a king. The way that he just uses, I know that you are against executive order, but the actions of this president are unprecedented when it comes to killing programs that were approved and funded by Congress. This is a consistent behavior from this president, and he deserves to be held accountable for it.
What did you two make of these videos that Trump posts? And just to give some color commentary for our listeners, there's one where Trump wears a crown and flies a fighter jet with King Trump written on it, and he drops what appears to be excrement on the protesters. That's kind of crappy.
What it is. Yeah.
In another, he wears a crown and robe and wields a sword as a song with the words "Hell to the King" plays. And, people like Nancy Pelosi bow to him. I mean...
He's been the ultimate troll. We've known that for a decade. And therefore, he's trolling it. Yeah. And he gets lots of attention because he's trolling it.
Yeah.
I also think it's his id, though. Like, it is who he wants to be.
Yes. Doesn't surprise any of us. I have staffed a lot of politicians, all Republicans. And in the back rooms, you're always giving, thoughts on direction and what you think is the right thing to do. I would never advise this.
No.
I would never advise this to a politician. But this guy does it.
Yep.
And he wins for doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Unconventional, and it's how it goes. So we've also got him sending National Guard troops.
And you've now got Gavin Newsom doubling down, and
he's
he's
going to
moving
both
down
sides.
this path. So it's becoming the new normal on both sides.
Yeah, super disappointing to me. We've got National Guard troops now being sent to San Francisco. Trump's asking the Supreme Court to allow the deployment of National Guard in Illinois.
Yeah. Well, again, this is king-like behavior. So this is completely out of the norm. I just have to take people back to pre-election when I do feel like folks were on the right were kind of telling me and folks in my party that we were hysterical if we thought that he would use the military against people in this country. We're seeing it here and everywhere. It's just exactly how I imagined it would be, worse in some ways. I think the thing that bothers me is that it still feels like I'm looking for leadership in the Republican Party to pull us back from the brink here, and I do not see it. Do you feel like you're seeing it? No.
Yeah, I don't.
I would say that the power of Trump is so strong that those in Congress largely don't feel like they can push back. I mean, you got the Thomas Masseys of the world, congressman, Senator Rand Paul that Trump was dumping on.
Yeah.
There are two in the Republican Party that are pushing back, but I think most feel it's the push for Trump is so strong it's hard for them to push back against it.
Yeah, so just a fundamental lack of courage.
Yeah, and I think there's strength in numbers.
Since when have congressmen or women on either side of the aisle been known for courage?
Yeah,
this is why JFK wrote a book about it, because it's so few and far between.
If I were an elected official in Congress, I would be forming a coalition and finding strength in numbers to do what's right.
Yeah.
So you're not alone, but apparently they can't do it.
Part of a coalition, though, you need a majority.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult to find a majority.
If I were in Congress, I'd be okay being voted out if I stood on the right side of an issue. Yeah. Honestly. There's a lot more in life.
No, I know, but for most, it's all about getting reelected.
Yeah.
Reelected. There are so few that want to stand out on principle when they know they're going to lose.
Note to listeners, look for candidates that are okay not being reelected. Hey, so disappointing to see young Republicans acting in the way they did in these group chats. I didn't follow it in depth, but apparently there were jokes about gas chambers and rape. And I was a young Republican. It's something I identify with. I had choice experiences with young Republicans. I went to President Reagan's birthday party. I was in People magazine at a photograph of that party. I mean, young Republicans
I didn't know you were that old.
I am. But what in the world?
Well, we also have the AG candidate in Virginia that said reprehensible comments. And it's like, I don't know what people are thinking on either side of, well, we're having this, confidential discussion. There's no such thing as a confidential discussion, especially in these kind of groups. It's going to come out at some point.
Yeah,
and it's reprehensible that they would say this behind closed doors because,
I'm grateful to Politico for their reporting on this.
Yeah,
I'm also grateful that the New York's Republican State Committee took action.
Yes.
Shireen?
Yeah, I am too. I think that this is a pervasive cultural issue. I think that when you have that many people that are involved in supporting, propping up, replicating this kind of behavior, it suggests that this is the culture, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that if we look to our president and those around him, it reinforces that this kind of behavior is okay. I will say, in a shocking turn of events, I was pretty happy to recently see Ben Shapiro say, no, we have to address this. We have to call this out. So there are a few people who are within the sort of Republican establishment who frankly benefit from this kind of discourse, who are starting to say we have to take this seriously. I hope he has some consistency and a plan to do that.
Yeah.
But it is part of the culture.
Yeah.
And I'm going to point out the Salt Lake Tribune had an editorial cartoon a few days ago, and it was the Hole in the Head gang,
Oh, yes.
which I thought was reprehensible. This is supposed to be one of our respected institutions in our state that I get parody and sarcasm and stuff like that. But to me,
In this climate.
given a recent shooting, I thought that was beyond the pale.
We learned this week that they found what I'm going to call it some sort of structure in Florida with line of sight to where Air Force One takes off that could have been another assassination attempt.
Yeah.
That was just so chilling to me.
Yeah.
They said that President Trump used a different stairs to access Air Force One that were more direct, so he had less time on the runway. I mean, I'm just like, this is the world we're in.
Yeah.
Really awful. Hey, let's take a short break, and then we'll do some local news. It's Natalie Gochner with Shireen Gorbani and John Dougal. Stay tuned. You're listening to Both Sides of the Aisle on UPR. We love to hear from listeners like you. If you would like to send us a comment, email bsotapodcast@gmail.com. That's bsotapodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Shireen Gorbani on the left.
John Dougal on the right.
Natalie Gochner in the political center. This is Both Sides of the Aisle. John, we're going to go to you first. Governor Cox is weighing the notion of expanding the number of justices on the Utah Supreme Court. What do we have? 5 currently.
5 currently.
You're now
One that's going to retire in December, and one that's been nominated that needs to go through the confirmation process. So we're
roughly that.
But it'll be 5.
You are an attorney.
Recently sworn in.
Now
getting sworn out.
Break this down for our listeners just a little bit, because what problem are we trying to solve? And does it feel like too much government to have more?
So the process we have for the Supreme Court justices is we have 5. They're nominated by the governor. They come through a nominating process for the names to be presented to him. Once the governor nominates,
which is a review by senators.
Well, no, before we get there.
Okay, before we get there,
There's
yes.
a group before we get there.
That's true.
And then it goes to the Senate for confirmation. So they're going to look into the background of the nominees and vote on it in committee, and then send it to the floor where it would be voted on by the entire Senate before that justice is seated. And then we have a retention process. So periodically, you can think of kind of every 10 years, justices are up for a vote whether to retain them or not. And usually it's pretty pro forma. Almost all judges and justices get retained year after year, vote after vote. And so one of the concerns that's there is some of the rulings in the past with the Supreme Court, whether it's kind of somewhat run off the rails, and whether we should add another justice or 2 or 3 to the court.
Mm-hmm.
Some would say it's court packing. Others would say, it's just growing with the size and complexity of government.
Yeah, I find it so interesting to think of court packing when we've had how many consecutive years of a Republican governor?
Since what?
Veto in a
75?
veto-proof Republican legislature. It's, I get the idea of court packing when the parties swing back and forth.
Yeah.
But what is court packing in this context? Shireen and I both just look at John.
I'll just also say, when you say run off the rails, what you mean is that they're interpreting our Constitution in a way that is displeasurable to the legislature. So, for example, the decision on Prop 4 was that the people of Utah have a right to reform their government. The legislature, for I think obvious reasons, doesn't like that. They have continued to keep the injunction in place that we have against a really devastating basic total abortion ban in the state. And they looked at our Constitution. Our Constitution says you have a right to determine your family, that you have a right to bodily integrity. And so they said, no, this should be a thoughtful process, and it should go through the courts, and we should not strip away people's rights. So that's what you mean. I mean, when you say they go off the rails, is that they interpret our Constitution in favor of the people of Utah.
Yeah. But one of the other key things, and this is why I said there's 2 parts. Some that would say that, some that would say just the size of we're growing, and the number of decisions that are rolling through. And so
Require
Governor
more
Cox
people.
said, I think it's taking too long to make decisions, and that hurts our litigants. I think it's worth exploring how we can get justices additional resources that they might need. And so he's open to this concept because it is taking a long time for rulings to come
That
through.
part speaks to me. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If that's what they decide, that it's taking too long and we need more expertise to write these opinions and get it through. But the notion of court packing in this environment doesn't make sense.
Well, and I also I question the premise there, right? So the idea is that if we go from 5 to 7 or 9 people, that things will move faster.
Just more people to write majority
More people to
opinions,
write,
minority opinions.
Yeah, opinions.
Yeah, I guess I just think that there's a lot more that goes into it than that. Like, are they properly funded and supported to make sure that they have the resources they need to do
It's
the
a fair
research
question.
they need to do?
Shireen, let's go back to Prop 4.
Yeah.
Wow. Since we
Remind
last,
us what's Prop 4.
Yeah, right.
you know,
Could you draw the boundaries around this?
So this is the
2018.
Better Boundaries Initiative in
Citizens
2018
Initiative,
that's caused all this craziness in our redistricting process. We now have Map C, which has been passed by the legislature. That is the law of the land that we're working through.
Yeah.
But the Republican Party
Well,
decides,
it's being sent out to the judge for the judge to review.
okay, yeah, sorry, I missed that. I should have said that.
Little nuance there.
And the judge not only has Map C to review, but 2 maps that were submitted by Better Boundaries.
By the
League of
petitioners.
Women, League of Women Voters and Better Boundaries. Yeah.
Okay. So, so that's going to be interesting to watch. But you also have the Utah Republican Party now filing the paperwork with the Lieutenant Governor's office to kick off a referendum effort and an indirect initiative effort.
Yes.
Talk about chaos.
Okay, so an indirect initiative effort. I'm hoping that somebody here understands when this came into our law, because it doesn't seem like this is something they passed to do this. This has been an existing.
This has been in existence, but nobody has ever
No one's
exercised
ever used
it. So
it.
you can run an initiative, and rather than sending out to the voters to vote, you can gather the signatures and then send it to the legislature to vote on.
So this is how they're going to undo, listeners. This is how they're going to undo Prop 4. And if you get approached to sign something, I highly recommend not signing it. They need half the signatures that people need for a citizens initiative. So citizens initiatives or referendums are closer to 150,000 signatures. This is 70. So this is a cheat code. And for me, what I think is so distressing about it is that the messaging coming from the Utah GOP is that it is to reinstate power to the people because the people elect their representatives. But listen to me, people of Utah, it is stripping away your power. And the fact that they are just willing to undo these initiatives, to me, is just a further example of the way that this legislature is out for a power grab.
This happens on both sides, but one of the things I find frustrating is if you have enough money, you can get the signatures. It's just a money game.
One of the key things, though, also is the referendum to overturn Map C. And so this creates an interesting dynamic. If they get the signatures, then it delays Map C for a period of time until the voters can vote on it. So essentially we'll delay it for a year. And the LG has said, this is going to cause confusion, chaos, everything else like that. The interesting thing is this is part of the process. Both of these are part of the process.
Right.
And governance is messy.
Yeah.
That is just the nature of the beast. And so it would be interesting to see if they get enough votes to make Map C subject to a referendum, which puts it in pause because technically we have no map because the judge threw out the congressional maps.
I just think as bullish as Utah Republicans seem to be about how popular they are and how popular their policies are, I don't understand why they're so afraid of the people.
Well, stay tuned. This is we're going to be talking about this more.
Well, and I would suggest it's not that they're afraid of the people. I would suggest, and this is my opinion, where I think the judge, overstepped in terms of, and I said this back when Prop 4 was being pushed, that I thought it was encroaching into what is a constitutional duty of the legislature. And so the legislature is defending their power under the Constitution from my perspective.
Sure, but this courts would disagree with you.
Hey, okay. Another thing I want to just chat about, just because it's that week, my ballot arrived for municipal elections. I had 2 choices to make, one for the Murray City Mayor and one for City Council.
Yet or not?
It's out in my car. I did it this weekend. Yeah, I did it this weekend. I have a rule, to wait a little bit in case something changes,
You're one of those.
But I also, there's a lot of verbiage with your ballot that says by the time and date you need to get it in to make it count.
In the past, it used to be you could postmark it the day of the election. Now it's got to be received by 8 p.m., which I like. I like the fact the polls have closed. It's got to be received by the time the polls close.
I don't know if you guys have any comment on that, but I also was disappointed to see this new law that said that for me to continue to be a vote by mail candidate, I had to go in and go through a bunch of steps.
Yeah.
So I went through those steps this weekend. It was okay. I mean, it worked, but it just feels like we're putting up barriers to people to vote.
Again, I will just say, there's something going on here in this state. And I ask listeners to consider what it means when this legislature makes it more difficult for people to vote in the ways that they like to vote, when they're hell-bent on picking the folks that get to vote for them. This is an anti-democratic movement.
John? I mean, that's a strong statement. But for me, I was just like, I had to get on a website and then I had to get my driver's license
Where did you get
number.
your instructions? I missed
They
that.
were
It's
in the
in the
ballot.
ballot.
In the ballot.
I didn't even see
and
those.
then and then I had to have the last 4 of my social, and then I had to verify some different things, and then I'm ready to be done. But I'm like, oh, my husband's going to need help with this, and if I wait, I have to, figure out how to do it again. So I might as well do his right now. So with him in the room, we went through it.
And my desired approach is kind of a hybrid. Mail out the ballots. Don't force people to ask. Just mail out the ballots, but have them dropped off in person. So checking in and submitting it just takes, a minute or less. Mm-hmm. But I would do that hybrid, which is mail them out and then have people turn them in person.
Shireen, did you see how much money's going to the Salt Lake City Council races? At least some of them.
I don't have the number in front of me, but I did see this is record dollars. And one of the things that's driving it is out-of-state dollars.
Yeah, what do you make of that?
So what I make of it, well, I think elections are getting more expensive. We're seeing that, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's also, for me, it raises some questions. I have some concerns about it. What do you think?
Well, and what it looked like to me is there was lots of discrepancies. Some were getting a lot of money, some not so much. I don't know. I don't like the money coming from the outside. But
why is it coming? I mean, I usually say money follows power. Mm-hmm. So what that would indicate to me is there is some type of power that money is trying to influence.
Yeah. Well, that's something to keep an eye on. Let's do another one. I've been watching the affordable housing issues come about.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I think it was. Anyway, this weekend, something like that. They did the ribbon cutting on Utah's first modular apartment complex. This is done by the Other Side Academy. This is at 648 East, 100 South in Salt Lake City, a 4-story apartment complex. About 100 people will live there.
Yeah.
Has Other Side Academy associated with it, which is really some of the best in terms of serving.
So is it all transitional housing? Or?
Yeah, my understanding is it's transitional housing. And if you live there and do well, you can qualify to be in the Other Side Village on Redwood Road.
Yeah.
So it's transitional in that sense. But the reason it caught my eye is I drive on State Street a bit, and at Intermountain Healthcare's new hospital location. So this is State Street and
8th South.
8th South. It's a big open. It's where the old Sears building used to be.
Oh, I drove past it today. It's the big hole in there.
It's the big hole. There's a pond.
There were some big modular type buildings in it last week.
That's it. Okay. So it caught my eye because, and this is vintage Utah or Salt Lake because, Intermountain's a nonprofit hospital chain. They have space. I'm sure the Other Side Academy said, hey, we've got these modulars coming in. Can we use your space temporarily? So all of a sudden there's all these things there. Now they're moved just over the weekend.
Days, yeah.
But it's really beautiful to see.
Yes, it is beautiful to see. And I think this is a critical piece of the, for folks who are unhoused living on our streets, the transition stops along the way are lacking. So we either have treatment, you can go into treatment, you can be thrown in jail. But if you get into a program like the Other Side Academy, it's really hard to find those step ups. Like where do you go from there? Mm-hmm. So this kind of investment is essential in the long-term fight that we have against homelessness in the city.
Yeah, positive. Okay, maybe one last topic. Utah could become the first red state, John, requiring menstrual products to have transparent labels. Where do we take this one?
This is one of those things from my perspective. I always question when the government starts weighing in and dictating what should and shouldn't be said.
Yeah.
I'd prefer that it's the market. And if you don't like what's being advertised, you don't buy it. You don't shop with it. If it doesn't have the disclosure you want, you go elsewhere and you let the market decide.
Yeah,
but I always watch when legislators start to get in power and then all of a sudden we can use government to do this and that.
Shireen, John and I are funny here because we're both free market proponents, but I see information failure as one of the places where markets fail and where you need government to step in and like provide information like nutritional information or flight on time arrival data.
Yeah.
This is one of those for me. I'm just fine with this.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. In all of the things that are happening in the sort of MAHA movement, the fact that we no longer have fluoride in our water is not something
America
I'm happy
healthy again.
Not something
MAHA.
I'm happy about. But I do think that there is a good reason to take a close look at, menstrual products. I just read the article this weekend about the amount of lead that's in protein shakes and drinks.
Right? Okay.
There are really concerning things. And frankly, we have a government that's largely, dismantled the ways that we keep people safe through, consumer protections and product investigation. The CDC or, for example, the Health and Human Services used to investigate these kinds of things. So I think that there's a good reason to take a look at it, and people should have the right to know.
See where it goes. All right. Well, that's a wrap for us. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Shireen Gurbani, John Dougal, and Natalie Gochner. Programs produced by Anthony Scoma. Thanks so much, everyone.